Hello and welcome back to Thomas's Moustache. Today is going to be a little bit of a story time, I suppose, and as you can see my mustache is growing back quite well. But I have just finished traveling, and I thought maybe you'd be interested in hearing a little bit about it. Now, it's not going to be all just a boring story about some guy who went on some trip. There is going to be a moral of the story, which is why the title of the video is going to be something like "My Pomade Lasted 48 Hours of Traveling," or something of the sort. But it was an adventure, of course. I did have to film a few videos in advance, just because of how long I'd be traveling for. But I went to Vancouver. Well, I was transferring through Vancouver, and this was during the great big winter storm. Now, I generally have a rule about flying in winter because there's just so many delays these years. It's just been a nightmare. You know, the air travel industry has had a bit of trouble and reduced operations, and now countries want the tourism, and you know what I mean. But anyway, I was flying through Vancouver when that storm hit, the big blizzard, and it was quite an adventure. The place was just covered in snow. I think I might have some pictures to put up on the screen. Now, you might look at it and say, that's not too much snow. Actually, it's like a baby amount of snow. But for Vancouver, it's a lot of snow because they just don't usually get that much snow. So it was enough to shut down operations for a while. Now, so, of course, all the flights were canceled. And every single domestic flight that day was canceled, of course. And then the next day, pretty much all the flights were canceled as well. And the day after that, they were starting to get it back under control. Flights were coming in, but no flights were leaving, basically. So you'd still see people coming in and what have you. But the lineup for rebookings was about 7 hours long, which was a record in my mind, but it was something. Now, I don't know how many of you have traveled through Vancouver, but it's actually a very nice airport, probably my favorite airport in the world that I've been to, at least, just because its layout is very easy to navigate and what have you. But of course, as I was saying, there were a lot of unhappy travelers, because most people were transiting, many to Calgary, Winnipeg, wherever else they're going. Some people, I think, were transferring into America. I knew one guy was. But it was quite an adventure. I was stuck there, and I was lucky. I was only stuck there for one day. I managed to get out on the only flight leaving that I know of that whole day. But I was lucky enough because that wasn't my flight, but I was just fortunate to get on the flight. But other people were not so lucky. But I was certainly very fortunate. But it was something with Uber prices, you know, and hotel prices, you know, with the storm and everything. For some people, if they wanted to leave the airport, they're going to have to pay a pretty penny. But it was good, and you know what? I don't think it could have been better for me, really, because I came out of that situation really appreciating Air Canada staff and just the staff in general in the airport. I have a new respect for those people because I got to see the difficulties they were under, and really felt a sort of kindling in my heart of kinship and bond, which was a good experience. We were all having a tough time. So definitely learned a lot from such a trip. You probably don't want to hear too much about little old me and my little old travels. But let me tell you something. I thought, and I really wanted to film it. I really did, but I just didn't have the energy. I was cooked. But I wanted to film about it, take at least a few pictures. I just didn't even get around to it. I don't know why, but just to show the progression, because I thought this would be fun to do. But again, I didn't want to make any promises for good reason. But I thought, let's see what my pomade does, right? So when I'm leaving, I put in the pomade, similar to this style, of course, and I want to know what it looks like after 48 hours of messing around. Trains, planes, automobiles. Now, before I left, I thought, obviously I want a strong holding pomade. The strongest one I have is Gatsby Dressing Pomade Ultimate Lock. And, well, you may have known that I had a change of opinion about my pomade, Gatsby pomade, so of course I quite like it now. Actually, I downright love it. But I thought this would be the perfect pomade. Give it a run, see how it does. So I popped it in. The style holds really, really tight. If it dries like that, it's going to stick like that, right? So I put it in and went on my merry way. And I'll tell you, it performed better than even expected. After 48 hours of messing around and being delayed and sweating like a pig, because you wear your heaviest clothes when you're traveling. So sweating, stinking, eating, drinking, wandering around. I mean, it held up perfectly. And sleeping on an airplane. You might know sleeping on an airplane is not very comfortable. Some people seem to do it really well. The person not too far from me, about one seat over from me, slept for what must have been 10 hours. But I only do a few hours at a time, maybe a couple hours here, a couple hours there. But even with my head rolling against the headrest in a bad sleep, it still held together so perfectly. So of course it gave me a even greater appreciation for the Gatsby dressing pomade here. If you're able to get it, I think you really should. If you need a hairstyle that can survive no matter how long you're out for, how long you're away from sanitary conditions, right? This will keep your hair looking good. I didn't even need to run a wet comb through it. It was that good. I was so impressed by that. When I got landed, you feel like doing very little, but when I landed and looked in the mirror, I was shocked about how great my hair looked. And I know it might not look amazing right now. It doesn't look, maybe I don't do an amazing styling job, but compared to what it could be. One good thing is it keeps your hair out of your eyes when you're traveling. And those airport people, they like to see your face, right? So it just is good for everybody. So in conclusion to my story, of course, is that when you're traveling, if your hair is long enough, of course, it is good to put in a pomade. And from my own personal experiments, the pomade lasted very well. It did incredibly. I don't have too many pictures, sorry, or video at all, but I'll put up what I do have and we'll see. But Gatsby dressing pomade, if you can get it, or at least a super strong hold pomade for traveling, I think it's the right choice. So hopefully you found this useful, and we'll see you again soon. Toodaloo.